have to look at the date. I just don't even know anymore. February 18th. And that means it's time for a really big class. It is my absolute privilege and just honor to be able to introduce my guest today. It's Stephen Copes from the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra. Thanks for being here, Steve. I'm really excited to see you and to hear what you have to tell these wonderful young people today.
For having me.
Just a few things to say. I think we met at the Encore School for Strings in, I'm not going to say what year, when I was probably 14 or 15 years old. You probably were too. And I remember just being absolutely dazzled by the group of musicians that were, or violinists that were at this amazing summer camp. Encore was in the middle of nowhere in Ohio. It was a place where you went to practice and learn a ton of repertoire. And we heard, I don't remember how often there were recitals, almost every day. I think there was a recital or a class. And really a who's who of the violinists of our generation were all there. And I remember hearing you play. I remember hearing you play in a string quartet, and it might have been Shostakovich, but it might have been Schubert. And it might have been a quintet. I don't really recall the piece, but I remember you, actually, and you being in the middle of it all and just sort of with these antennae out and playing like the amazing musician that you are. So early memories of that time. And we haven't really crossed paths since then in a funny way, even though we have a lot of friends in common. But
I think I've seen you or met you once with the quartet, but it's been so long I can't remember exactly when. But
I do know that your performance of George Xentakis's violin concerto, the second concerto, was a huge part of my quartet's time, actually, because it was well, we commissioned a lot of music and premiered a lot of music, as have you. And when we were talking with George about writing a piece for us, it was a recording of you playing his concerto that he sent us. And I remember there's a middle movement. Is it a cantilena or cantabile or something? There's a very beautiful...
Cavatina, yeah.
And that movement is what made us say kind of, yes, this is the voice that we want to bring into our lives next. And that launched a wonderful long relationship with George Xentakis. He ended up writing 2 string quartets for us, and we had a great time working with him. And I have to tell you, because a couple of years ago I approached him and asked him to write me a solo piece, and he said he couldn't because he owed you one.
Well, he hasn't written it yet, so but he's still a good friend. We keep in touch, and he's written a few pieces for our orchestra as well after that concerto. And I played his duos. I don't know if you've played his knickknacks. They're really, for any of you violinists that want some fun viola violin duos, these are some great ones. We talked about him doing a violin piano sonata, but every time I talk to him, he's on the verge of retirement or becoming an actor in his local theater troupe. I don't know.
Well, that's his shtick. I think he says that to put us all off. But you should remind him to write his piece for you so that I can get one out of him. I also told him that he could write me something really easy. He could save the hard piece for you. But that didn't work either. So we have that in common, waiting for George. I think we should just get right to the performances today. We have 3 great players with 3 great violin concertos, and I just couldn't help when I put the program together but notice that these 3 pieces, we have Tchaikovsky, Wieniawski second concerto, and Sibelius, and they were all written within 50 years of each other. They're all in D, and all of them start with an allegro moderato movement, but of such completely different character and nature, and each one so definitive of the composer. and the way that they write for violin. So our first performer is Tessa Henderson. She's giving us some Tchaikovsky, and we'll get to her video. Enjoy.
Bravo. Great job, Tessa.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, how long have you been playing this for? Sorry, I'm just gonna figure out how to pin you right now.
Sure. Well, I played it a couple of years ago, but it was only kind of recently I've gone back to it, and some things feel better and some things feel much worse.
Much worse. What are those things? Just out of curiosity to kind of start from your perspective.
It might just be a stamina issue, actually. You know, it's kind of it's been on the back burner for a while, so coming back to it, some when you're not practicing all of it kind of every day, suddenly even
Right.
a small chunk feels as if it's longer than the whole first movement.
So, like, in these kind of classes, it's always hard, you know, with such a short amount of time, it's always tricky for me to figure out, like, what can I say that basically I feel like my job is to say the couple things that maybe have the most effect on how you're going to proceed after, like, rather than, I mean, going over things in too minute detail. But so my basic impression is that, you know, this piece is such a cantilena piece. Everything about it is, almost everything about it, aside from maybe the last big triplet chord, all those sections, is it's so, like, so much of Tchaikovsky. It's just so much about the singing aspect, the cantilena, and that's what one of the things that makes this piece so great. It's just it's everything you'd ever want the violin to do, you know. And so I'm trying to see, I feel like that needs to be maximized more, and that involves a lot of different things that kind of need to come together from different parts of your playing. But I think to take that as, like, the first goal, like, how do you sing on the violin from note to note, make a tone, be free, move in the moment like a great singer or a great violinist. And some of the things involved with that are, you know, that I see could be improved, are just flexibility of all sorts. I mean, you play wonderfully, and it's in tune, and you obviously, you know, you can play the piece. But you know, things like using all of your skills and all of the equipment that you have to maximize everything. For instance, you know, I was just kind of watching, you know, a few lyrical passages where I would say 85% of the time you come to a down bow, you use that down bow in the first, you know, millisecond of the stroke, where you know, like, my one of my teachers had me for a while, which I think has kind of gotten me into a bad adult habit, which to play as I sing, or to kind of somehow try to connect this thing in our hands, which is so strange and awkward to play sometimes, and with our voice. And I always find that helps. Your neighbors might think it's really strange, and maybe you end up with a residual when you play, which some of my colleagues accuse me of. But So like for me, things like watching your left hand in some passages where even in the da, 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 your fingers are a little high off they lift, they don't stay close enough to the string that you can that the action is directly related to the singing. So this distracts from kind of all the flexibility that you could have in all the little joints and things like that. Things with your right hand, just to I feel like this is a good time with pandemic and no performances to kind of like deconstruct parts of your playing. I know I'm doing it in a practice room where I give myself the chance to just kind of fail a lot at trying different things. You know, one of my, take a video of myself, watch your video of the Tchaikovsky again and kind of say like, oh, what does that look like? What does it sound like? What can I do better? So I guess what I'm saying is that there's lots of little things that I could poach from different parts of your playing that I would love to get better in that regard. Just so that you can think and sing and have it come out as a violin in that way. So maybe the best way to start is just for you to play a little bit more, and then we can just kind of work on some of those little things as we go along. So Tessa, sorry, so even, sorry, let me grab my over here. Even that there's a lot, I hear a lot of kind of dead singing space. Like there's a lot of notes that just kind of, and I'm not saying just vibrato, but like even just the intensity of the bow. And especially lyrical things. I like, if I want to get something more singing, I try to start with the bow first. What am I doing? Like, how is the hair? What is the hair really doing on the string? Just start with that really simple point. Just like, what is when you're thinking about vibrato, rather than thinking about all these other things, like what actually is happening with my finger on the string when I'm vibrating? Like, what is the physical thing that's happening? So, maybe even just starting, I like to pulse notes a little. So just slowly to see how much bow am I using? Am I getting a quality kind of draw? Like think about drawing. Can you just do it slowly without vibrato and as relaxed as possible, and trying to get as much texture and friction and grit as you can out of the hair on the string. Try it again. Yeah. And as much sometimes it's dangerous to judge just from looking, especially over Zoom, but just that you need to have as much sensitivity as you can to just, yeah, try it again with as much feeling as you can in your right fingers. Yeah, that's great. Just, I mean, even just doing that, seeing, you know, I also feel myself sometimes when I play trying to make the sound with my left hand, you know, trying to make the tone with the left hand, which it doesn't really do. I mean, in some way it does, but so trying to figure out where's my left hand getting in the way, where's my left hand trying to lead the way when really this should be leading the way. Especially for this whole opening, it's just all about singing. And also I hear a lot of players play this where it's, if I ask them to play it over, and it would be almost exactly the same every time because they take the same amount of vibrato and the same. So I would practice it, you know, 5 different ways, 5 different dynamics. You're all by yourself. You can do almost whatever you want, and listen to some old time singers, listen to some Tchaikovsky songs or operas just to get out of that, you know, Tchaikovsky, you know, the you know, Tchaikovsky concerto. I mean, Cecily, we probably heard 9 million Tchaikovsky concertos growing up. I think I did one of them. And, you know, I would guess 9 times out of 10, people play it about that opening about the same. So just to hear something a little different. So that would be the first step in trying to like kind of figure out that stuff. No, I'm just kind of babbling on, but then adding your left hand and trying to see how does that vocal part work? What am I saying? So try to do that one more time and try to relax. Also relax here. Both of your hands feel like they could use a big dose of relaxation and flexibility. Just kind of take a day to deconstruct a little bit, you know. Anyway, play the opening one more time.
Still without vibrato?
No, with a little bit. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I think, I mean, vibrato and all of that is a huge topic we could get on, and I obsess about a little bit. But I think in general, I see that I wish your the movement from your left hand knuckles, your bass knuckles, that's where the dropping, that's where all the main dropping comes from. The main, you know, feeling of flexibility. If those are locked, which it looks like they are sometimes when you play some passages, and again, hard to just judge from here, but these need to be super flexible. That's why, you know, if you ever do some vibrato exercises, this is a good one to do, where you kind of just pull your knuckles in and out, and then a little faster, like, yeah, but you keep your wrists straight. So you feel what it's like to move from your knuckle, and you can press harder, or yeah. So you curve, right, and you do that with each finger in different positions, and you'll because if this joint is locked and it's in different stage, different it operates in different, you know, points of resistance. But if it's locked, then your hand gets locked, and even the tip of your finger kind of gets locked. So that's really important, just to think about the flexibility of your finger on the string, just so you can really sing, you know. I mean, there's a lot of vibrato exercises and things I could talk about, but the main thing is that you're never pressing and locking any of your joints. And that requires, kind of feeling like the string is almost like a trampoline, that it's you have a bouncy, buoyant feeling. And that takes a little retraining sometimes, but go on with that next theme. Keep going.
Sorry, I thought
Yeah. 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 One little thing, just when there's a little end to a part of the phrase, microphones, don't go on with the next thing before you finish that little micro phrase, right?
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, those little kinds of things where you take your time rather than. I'm sure you didn't do that, but something like that. And then, again, I'm just trying to compress lots of comments into a short period of time, but try to make sure you're not, when you do an up bow, you're not always moving that way, and when you do a down bow, you're not always moving this way. It's fine if you do move, but like I keep coming back to the hair on the string. That's what you need to. That's what is making the sound, not your body movement. It's that point of contact. So, are you doing something in the service of the sound you want to make there? Maybe you can back up just from where you were.
Oh. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just kind of watching your I feel like your left hand has a lot more room for flexibility and lightness, at least of action, not of robustness or tone. But this thing about dropping from your bass knuckles, I don't know if any of your teachers have mentioned that, but that really, if you were to grasp your hand from here with your thumb to restrict your hand moving, that's or practicing a trill. There's a lot of the things you're doing, the way your finger goes down, you probably wouldn't be able to trill that way because it would be too stiff. So you need that really buoyant, bouncy feeling, but right now I feel like you're kind of stuck there in certain kinds of things, and you don't have a lot of flexibility within that. Am I kind of on the right track, or?
Well, I'm thinking maybe I'm just pressing too hard, and it's
Well,
just
that does that, yeah. Yeah, so just kind of always working on that with scales, or I mean, you could do it in a passage. I mean, one easy way to see about that is sometimes practicing this. Now, this sounds horrible, but where you practice as if you're playing harmonics. Like really horrible, obviously, but and then you just keep pressing down, not pressing, but dropping down a little bit more. And then enough so only until you have that pure sound. Because when you press down, you don't gain anything. You lose a lot of do you want to do from Hi, Tessa. Sorry, this is one place where I feel like you could benefit from just trying not to move as much and just taking it. There's a lot of again, I said it's fine as long as you're moving at the same speed with your bow when you're moving, It's actually good to practice moving because, but your bow has to be moving at the same speed and the same way as if you were still, Just back to get this whole thing a little more brilliant and I think it's just a matter of kind of keeping your fingers down a little bit more, where you can. How do you practice something like that? I'm curious to clean it up a little bit.
So I was practicing it separate bows,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of rhythms dotted,
Mm-hmm.
the opposite of dotted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's something about a legato, having a legato left hand, like starting at. Has anyone ever mentioned that? Just kind of, rather than trying to, poke out each note. I mean, to have like you're playing a Schubert melody, basically. Because then your fingers stay really close to the strings, and then you I mean, all those things you do are great. But I think it's just your left hand not moving within the groups of notes. Your hand, just from here. So I keep coming back to this bass knuckle thing, but
well, actually, I think the problem is because I was practicing it in rhythms, and because I was actively trying to get the rhythm nice and snappy, I was trying to lift. And then, of course, at tempo, I'm still trying to get the same height. And actually, it just sounds scrappier rather than tighter.
Well, maybe your bow's trying to imitate, all the snappiness of the rhythms or something. I don't know. I think just, kind of common sense things like keeping your fingers down when you can, not pressing too hard. When you go to a higher note, you kind of have to use a little bit more energy, a little more force. I think, it's probably why Heifetz, one reason why he was so successful with his, trills. He practiced trills constantly for that kind of finger action. So he could apply that lightness to anything, to a cantabile passage or to a, running passage like this. Let's see. Why don't you start from what is it for after the section from C? Is it letter C? Do you have that? The lower.
Getting tighter.
Yeah. No, it was really good. A lot of good stuff. I just keep coming back to wanting you to be able to have as much freedom as possible within each section. I mean, I think all of this could be a little more, have a little more rubato in it from where you start. A little more, also a little more apprehensive. I mean, I think this is a good thing to practice too. Often things like this with completely different bowings and stuff, so you don't get stuck with the problems of that bowing. I mean, that's a good thing to apply to anything. So you could do anything. So you don't feel like you're always practicing the same thing and stuck, and you actually end up learning how to divide the time a little better.
I think I'm gonna butt in here.
Cut me off.
sadly, and maybe ask you if there's like one more thing you want to say before we move on.
Well, I guess if you had any questions for me about all the babbling I've done, and any questions about some of those things that I mentioned.
Oh,
Yes, you.
well, I suppose because when you practice the rhythms, because actually the main thing you're saying is actually the thing I was thinking the opposite. I was thinking how much height can you get
It often happens with
as
me.
fast as possible. And I suppose when it's slower, it's easier to do that because ideally you do want to be able to run around the violin. But how do you practice that slowly then? Would you ever practice your fingers near the string at a slower tempo? And then
Always, yeah.
maybe,
No, I mean, because the thing is, it's kind of a trust thing. Like you have to trust. I always feel like I need to deconstruct what I'm doing to trust what's actually happening. I'm not someone who wants to take out a video camera every second I practice. I have to kind of do it on my own little video camera. And then I think the tricky thing about playing an instrument is that you have to take all those very objective things that you can see and feel, and you have to unify them with some sort of simple thought. So you can do an hour of practice on one of those passages, but then you have to have like a word that doesn't make you think of all those separate things. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like you don't want to be thinking of those things when you're playing the passage for real. You want to think about the music, so you have to have that in the foreground, but you have to have, if you're trying to improve something physically, you want a word, an adjective that can unify all those things you were just working on without having your brain go through all the little steps. And I think that makes the difference between great players and pretty good players, is that they know how to do that and ignore all the stuff that prevents them from having the confidence and having the, I mean, that's all a big mental thing, and the same goes for athletes. And so I think that's always something fun to work on too. If I think this, let me think this, let me do what I was doing, let's record it, let me think this, try this out and see how that works, and see if honestly, 9 times out of 10, I find if you can just get yourself to that point, you don't even need to practice as much, because it's totally, a lot of it is up here. Obviously, there's so many little things we need to work on as fiddle players, but it's always good to work on those other kinds of things where you're trying to unify the bigger thing and make it easier to just think about phrasing and tone and everything else. So anyway, it was a pleasure to hear you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tessa. Thank you for playing. And I love the idea of having rehearsed a lot of string quartets. There's always the thought, you could sit in a group or any kind of ensemble and talk about the 30 different things that have to happen for you to start a note together. Or you could come up with the one word that makes you start the note together. Or whether that's color or articulation or anything. When you're in a group of people, it's very natural to think that way. Like, we're not going to talk about exactly what the contact point needs to be and how to pull the string. I mean, it just takes too long. You don't have that kind of time in rehearsal. And certainly not over here. There's not that kind of time in rehearsal. But we, with ourselves...
and they've done studies on it, like with I mean, I've read things with golfers, where they ask them to do a swing, and they take 50 of them and say, okay, we want you to think about X, Y, and Z while you're doing this, and take the other 50 and you have them think smooth or arc.
Yeah.
And the other group always does better, because they're not burdening their brain with all the, I mean, hard thing for me about that is always getting to the point where you can say to yourself, okay, I'm gonna let go of all those things that I know and I've worked on and I can feel tangibly, and then try to do it this other way. It's always hard for us, I think, to give up because we work so hard on those things. That's just, yeah, all the things you were saying about quartet.
I had a lesson with one of my students a couple days ago, and I hope she's in the meeting. I hope she doesn't mind me sharing this. We were working on actually just that exact thing of releasing the fingers so that the vibrato can move. And I asked her to think about having bubble wrap underneath her finger, and for her that just clicked. It was like magic. I could have spent an hour talking about all the different things that needed to happen, but just having the idea of bubble wrap underneath her fingertip made it like slightly deflated bubble wrap.
Right.
So that's what
yeah, you don't want to pop anything.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we should move on to Alfie. And have some Wieniawski. Alfie is our youngest performer today. He studies at Chet's, is that right? And with Sebastian Müller, a good friend of mine, and he's going to play the first movement of Wieniawski D minor.
Good job. Bravo, Ali. Alfie,
you.
sorry. Is this the first time you played it?
No, that was a recording from about a month ago, but I've not played it in a concert.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Great. And how old are you? Can I ask? You said you were
15.
the youngest. Sorry?
15.
15. Wow. That's impressive. So wonderful job. I can't, yeah, 15. Wow, that's great. My big thing is wanted to start with just like what your role is in playing a piece like this and kind of like what you want to communicate for any given phrase. Because to my mind, a lot of I hear the playing and I hear the wonderful playing, but I want something a little bit more. I want to hear what your how you're organizing the time, basically, not your practice time, but how you're organizing that moment, that each moment on stage. A lot for me, a lot of it is going by kind of matter of factly, if I can say it that way. So I don't know if that's the way you're felt when you did that run through, but that you need to be aware as you're playing how you're organizing the time, and that's can be a really tricky thing because you have so many things to worry about when you're playing. A lot of it for me has to do with the style of any piece you're playing and the kind of music you're playing. And for me, this kind of like the Tchaikovsky before you, it comes out of a tradition of virtuoso violin playing, especially for Wieniawski, but also just vocal and singing kind of music. And you know that if you change strings on the violin, sorry, you know, I think you have to think about some of these things vocally, as if you when you go up for a slide or when you change a note, it's just it can't always be so easy, and especially if you're playing it in a cantabile section, because a singer has to go from those intervals, and not that it should feel difficult, but I think just have a little more singing element. You want to just start at the beginning? We can just kind of talk through that. One of my teachers used to always say, reach out. And he said that, I think, as a physical thing, but also a mental thing, that when you're playing, you're not stuck in your own bubble of, I'm a violinist, I have to play this, my fingers, my bow, which is very easy to do. And we were kind of talking about it before, but that your job is to play, to get that out, to get your sense of time, your sense of rubato, your tone, and how you feel about each phrase to the audience. And to do that, you have to actually practice that. You can't just practice your violin and then say, I'm going to get inspired at the concert. You have to practice how it feels to lose control playing your violin and thinking these things, because I can tell you from experience, you'll get some excitement in the hall, and you'll get a feeling from an audience, and you'll get nerves, but you need to practice those, like getting confidence for bending a phrase or singing more. Should be part of your practice, I think, a little bit more. Anyway, so start from the top, and we'll try to go through. Hey, Alfie, I'm gonna stop you for a second. Just, I don't know if Cecily can hear. It's just it's too bad the sound quality is just is not very good. I know it's not what you're doing.
Yeah, it's Alfie's got the best connection he can, and so I
Okay.
think we're
Okay. I was just checking.
Yeah.
Because your A string sounds like an E string sometimes, but I know that's not you.
That's
I lost Alfie. Great. He even writes, I have my music out because I played this a billion years ago, but espressivo ma sottovoce, which I never would have guessed from your playing, actually. And I didn't even remember myself that was what he wrote. But can you try it again with that there? So you're not so extroverted maybe right away. My other question is, who have you listened to any recordings of this piece?
Yeah.
Because I think that would be good for you to listen, just to get a sense of different kinds of style. And anyway, go ahead. What were you going to say? Who have you listened to?
Honestly, I can't remember who I've listened to. I've listened to every single recording I could find on YouTube.
Okay. Well, two of the best that I can think about are obviously Heifetz as some fantastic early ones, but there's also a really amazing one of Isaac Stern from like the 40s, which gives Heifetz a big run for his money, if you can believe it, and has all of these little things that I'm talking about in terms of singing and taking time. And it's just, I think it would be good for you just to get out of your practice room and kind of get some other influences. One more time with that espressivo sottovoce. Yeah, because one thing same kind of thing I mentioned to Tessa. Every time you play a down bow, don't let it be the same speed, and just it seems like every time you play a down bow, it's kind of the same. There should be singing from the moment the hair hits the string, and that's why sometimes I like doing pulsing a little, so you feel really what is happening on the string. You have a lot more time in between all the notes. I mean, it's not a Haydn concerto. You have even more time in between notes. Try to use your imagination, and maybe even, I mean, it's also in D minor. It says have this, I don't know, a scene that you're setting. And you can keep it to yourself or you can think it up. But I think that kind of having that when you start for each phrase is helpful to get a tone color and an atmosphere going. Keep going, sorry. Great, that's great. I think it's still the same thing. Just don't always. It's a lot of kind of. I want a little more care on each stroke for what kind of sound you're going to make. If you do, you have a more. You don't have as much friction and on each note. So kind of take these phrases a little slowly sometimes and start in different parts of the bow. Maybe you don't always need to start or go the whole distance for everything. The most important thing is what is coming out, not that you're super free all the time, you know. And you keep going at C. Can you try that again one more time, Alfie? Yeah. But here, maybe you can just relax a little bit. Actually, I know it's all technical stuff, but that it's marked tranquillo, so not agitado. So just really even. So just practice nice and evenly, different kinds of things. Actually, in that passage, I don't really want to skip there, but there's one little thing I made a note of. Where's that? Just a little violin-y thing that I marked down. Oh, yeah. You go on the A string instead of the E string there. I think it's a little bit after that. But also still here. I think you need to enjoy moving the bow a little more slowly and having a little more chewiness in your sound. Right now, a lot of stuff is just kind of going by because your bow arm is always going at the same speed. You know what I mean? To enjoy the different areas you can play between the bridge and the fingerboard and the different speeds and pressures. I mean, just you have a lot more possibilities there. And I think also to that bubble wrap thing that Cecily mentioned, you can take advantage of, especially if your fingers stay this kind of slowish passage, if your fingers, left hand stay a little closer to the string, you don't have to expend so much energy going up and down, and you can concentrate more on vibrato and tone instead of, I know you're not doing that much, but just if you keep them closer, then you vibrate with your hand rather than each finger, you know? And you use less effort and concentrate more on your sound. Can you just start there one more time? Let's see. Can you do it slowly once? Do it slowly once without vibrato and just try to keep your left hand the same loose feeling for the whole time. So you're really concentrating on feeling. No vibrato. Yeah, again, do it again, but leave enough room. Concentrate on your bow, how you measure your bow out. Yeah. So in something like this, I think your left hand, you have to think of your left hand being legato too, and relax so that now I would, if I was practicing it, I would add a little bit of motion and more shaping, even when you're slow. Try to phrase in little micro increments the same way you would when you're doing it for Rio. Just start increasing slowly so you can see what you're really doing. Because my guess is you don't practice the slow these passages. You practice the hard passages, the technical kinds of things slowly. But things like this, you probably don't practice, 10 times slowly. I could be wrong, but.
No, you're right.
Okay. Let's go on from the Tranquillo part. Yeah. So Alfie, sorry. Just one little thing. I still think that section at D needs to be a little less frantic and a little more just calm for those few bars. So I don't know, whatever you can do to sound wise, tone wise as well. Um, the other thing is, at F, I think you need to give yourself a little bit more room to luxuriate there. This is one of those places where I felt like you're just kind of going with a beat. Oh, you have to really, I would just be in a room alone and try to sing this like an opera singer. Seriously, embarrass yourself, whatever. I mean, I haven't played this in ages, but just a little more swashbuckling, I think. A little, can you just try that at F? And then I think we need to stop pretty soon. That's great. And I just, last thing I would say is when you do that, just try to avoid an accent on every bow. One thing I noticed in the videotape is you could maybe do with a little less wrist using of your wrist on every bow change. It's good to keep it flexible, but you can also get away with, there's less clunk on each stroke if you don't try to use it so much. Sometimes we have to, but you look at someone like Milstein or something, they don't even, it's just like this, right? As little disruption from the wrist as possible. And that's one way to kind of get away with that. But yeah, in general, I would just say, you've gotten it to such a high level. I would really try to make the most of, this is a really wonderful piece. There's, people like to, denigrate Wieniawski or something and saying it's just like, but this is actually a really beautiful piece, especially the second movement. And I think to kind of indulge yourself a little bit more, to imitate singers, to listen to some great violinists, to listen to some super old recordings, if you can find this, where, to get a little different view I think would be helpful. Anyway, great job. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Alfie. And I think Zoom is not doing us any favors tonight, unfortunately. Steve, we can't hear you very well either. So just so you know, I think Zoom has gone rogue a little bit. But I
think that's not good.
Everyone's getting the points across, and I hope it's a really great experience for everyone listening, everyone playing, and for you as well, despite our limited tech.
I don't know if I'm speaking too far from the computer, but
it's not picking up the violin very well, and I think it's the iPad setting. We didn't get it quite dialed in.
That's fine.
But we can get the point. And Alfie, I'm just going to let you know that last little bit of swashbuckling that you did, I loved personally, and you have nothing to make faces about. So I'm just going to throw that out there. None of us care. You're the only one who cares. And I hope that you take that to heart, because it was great to hear you really dig in and play. We are going to move on to Laura, who's going to give us some Sibelius Concerto. And I was explaining to Steve before the class that we've had Sibelius a lot, and I was going to say no more Sibelius, but then I just decided that February would be Sibelius month. But Laura has agreed to give us from the cadenza of the first movement onward rather than starting at the beginning. So you have to imagine the quavers going on. Her beautiful opening melody has happened. She's gone through some trials and tribulations, and then we're launching her off with the great three octave leap. And I think, Laura, if it's all right with you, we'll share the shorter section. So we're not even going to get to the end. We'll leave that for another player in the really big class later on. So we will share that video now.
Great job, Laura. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great job. I'm curious what, I haven't asked anyone this yet, but like what are your, I'm curious what your comments would be on your own performance, if that's okay to ask.
Yeah, of course.
Kind of be lazy for a second.
Sure. I thought it was kind of missing like the fire intensity.
Mhm.
I think performing for the camera is a weird thing, and yeah, so maybe it's a little bit slow in places and not quite intense. And then,
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that are tricky about that, of what you said, and also not playing with anyone, for anyone. Can you just hold on 1 second? I'm gonna ask my daughter to turn down her computer. Thank you, sorry. So, you know, I've actually never performed this piece. I know it very well, obviously, but heard many people play it. And there's a couple things that it doesn't matter, especially students I hear play it all the time. I feel like there's something lost with the rhythms that he actually writes. And what I mean by that is that, you know, I think he wrote the piece to sound improvised, especially the opening, which you didn't play, but the part that is similar, you know, after. And when you're not disciplined enough with the basic rhythm of those sections, I think it makes it much less compelling, actually, and has the reverse effect of feeling like impetuous and, you know, having the fire. It somehow like dilutes it. And for instance, so I think that, you know, if you could play it a few times convincingly musically, like from a place like that, with a metronome, like bending around it, but being mindful that if you ever had to play with an orchestra, they can't just follow you for this beat and that beat, but you know, just we don't, you know, not each little melismatic thing needs to be indulged with time. You can do it in other ways, but especially like I always hear and maybe I'm just being a stickler here, but I think there you can be a little more faithful to what's there, because this ends up sounding the same as what's after. They all start to sound the same. And then even later, just that you, yeah, I think the goal should be to play it so that it's almost something you're making up on the spot. And that's what's kind of one of the wonderful things about this piece. But to learn it first in a little bit more rhythmically disciplined fashion, so that you know where you really are bending the rhythm and where you're just not following it at all. And I think that'll actually end up making it much more exciting, rather than, you know, because it's kind of a coiled intensity in the orchestra, and you're kind of keep trying to get out of that box, you know.
yeah.
For the cadenza, I feel like it would be good for you to listen to yourself play it a few times, just for, not for any particular violin-y thing, but for the pacing, because there's so many cut off phrases, like quarter phrases, half phrases, and he keeps repeating them. And I was listening to it and I was kind of thinking, you know, you need to mix up how you need to pace it better.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. Because all these gestures just start to get lost where you are. So I think each section needs to kind of know a little bit better where it's going, rather than taking the same amount of time at each gesture. I don't know, some have an idea of a line. It should be free, but know where you're going a little more. And then if you're stopping or pausing for technical things, know that too. Like, this one, the affrontando one, can, I think, you have to keep going a little more. So just to kind of build, take each little section and kind of build. Otherwise it starts feeling a little, you're just stuck. I don't know how else to say it. Do you want to play a little bit?
Yeah, from the beginning of the cadenza.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot better, I think, a little more compelling. You a little more engaged. I wouldn't totally stop the music at this part. I think there's still a little tension in the air, and you don't need to come down so low. And then this could be a little more breathless, a little more agitato.
Yeah, sure.
You're gonna have something?
Yeah, like with a place like that with the diminuendo, I find it a bit tricky to know. I mean, I know what it means, but not what it actually means. If you know.
I guess just the opposite of crescendoing a little bit, but I know that sounds stupid, but it just I'm just trying to hear it. It's like a question, but it doesn't stop in the rest. Something, if it the other thing I notice a little bit, it's really a technical thing or something I'm worried about, but you have a lot of individual action on all your strokes, which is great, but unless it holds back the music, I feel like there's a little too much of it there. You should be able to let your arm go without worrying about this so much. Kind of I was mentioning a little bit to Alfie. You want to go on from the John?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. What if this is a little simpler, at least to start? Bleak, a little, yeah, more like a Bach, some sort of Bach solo sonata. What do you, maybe I'm just used to it, but what about going on? Sorry, I can't believe it. I think that. We'll practice it later, yeah.
Sorry.
Go on. That's great. Yeah. So there, I think those chordal things,
Yeah.
I would practice them so that you, if you choose, you can go forward in them or hold back. Right now, they're all holding back because you're maybe a little careful with them.
Sure.
And then also careful not to die on the, there's some musical impetus on your down boom. You kind of move the bow. You mean?
Sure.
Yeah. Right from there. Can I just mention what? I don't think you need to, even with a big orchestra, I don't think you need to, and it's hard to tell on Zoom, but I don't think you need to push so much here. You can just sink into the stream. Just kind of enjoy the. So don't press.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm sorry to stop again. It's kind of some of the same stuff I'm thinking that I was talking to Tessa about being aware of what's actually happening with your left hand. So I want to see a little more ability for you to have different kinds of vibrato.
Yes.
feels like when you play, especially when you have a big forceful bow stroke, that your left hand does the same thing.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think you need and starts working too hard. And I think you need to practice, find a ingenious way to practice so that you can disassociate those two things and put them back together if you need. So do practice with a fortissimo left hand when you're doing pianissimo in your bow, because right now every time you play strong, this gets tense, right?
Yeah.
And I want to hear more shimmering. So. That's great. That's great. Everything before was so much better, just like 10 times better. Let your vibrato be influenced by your bow arm, by the feeling in here, rather than, and then it's just a more beautiful sound. And then this part, I think if you can get away with doing less accents on the beats, it'll come off better. That's for the practice room. You want to do it from there?
Yeah.
Can you try it again, but like pretend there's a conductor who's just trying to beat simple time. Yeah, I would, I'm tapping my foot here by myself, and I don't want you to be in a straitjacket, but this is one of those places where I think you're going to run into big trouble if you're playing with an orchestra, and like I said, I think it's extremely exciting the way it's written, if you can do that, and if you were holding notes, certain notes. For instance, here, I don't mind it so much. You take a little more time there, and I think that's great because that's kind of what's in the music. But these other places are just kind of, I don't know, either it's something you heard or there's the way you were practicing, but it doesn't really add anything to what you would do otherwise. So I think that's something you can make a judgment with, like, am I adding something by bending the note, bending the time here, and otherwise, I think, you know, try from there. Yeah, I mean, listen to that. There's a really early Heifetz recording of it where, I mean, the guys, you know, I know it's Heifetz, but do you know the old story of him playing, I don't know what conductor he was playing Beethoven concerto with, and he, before the first tutti was, I mean, finished, he came in like a bar too early, and the conductor looked at him, and I don't know if this story is true at all. The conductor looked at him, he's like, what's the matter, Mr. Ives? He's like, it's like, I was counting in time. It was like I was coming in time, but your orchestra's just like, so I don't know. That's kind of Heifetz the jerk, but you want to keep going from the time we have? I don't know how much time we have. Yeah. That's a place where not good to take time. Once you get on the horse is gonna go, right? You don't have time to do that.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, I think we should need to stop soon, but I was just gonna say, like at 10 where you started, that's great. The more you can let this be the singing element and be influenced by the tone, to get the tone down first.
Yeah.
You and I mean, I would say I practice without vibrato a lot, just because I don't trust. I think we like to lead with this a lot, and sometimes it's good, but the basic quality of sound is coming from this, and if we don't have that, plus you can relax your left hand while you're doing it and see, what do I really need to add? Just, and when you do that, it makes a 50% leap in your tone quality, and so, and then just spend 5 minutes a day practicing reverse dynamics, with all different kinds of articulations, so that you're able to do whatever you want in those moments, or wide vibrato when you're, but light left hand when you're doing something strong here, so you don't get stuck. Yeah, bravo, great job. I'd love to hear it with the orchestra sometime.
Yeah.
I think Cecily wanted to maybe
thank
some
you.
questions or something.
Thank you very much, Laura, and thank you, Steve, for a great couple of hours here. Does anyone have any questions? We have a little bit of time if you can maybe move to gallery view, and if anyone wants to raise a hand or just unmute yourself, ask a question. Laura, if you have any questions.
You can put your video on too, so I can see what you all look like.
Yeah.
I've got one if no one else has got one.
Yeah, go, Laura. Go ahead.
There's quite a few discrepancies between the exposition and the recap with like dynamics, and there's even like a few rhythm things. And I was just wondering, like, because he's so detailed, it just seems really odd to me that it's different. And I was just wondering if you had any like thoughts about that. And
I mean, I haven't ever consulted the original score of this piece, but I suspect they're all what he wanted. I mean, I find even in like a Haydn symphony or something, I find a lot of those things. Then you find out later on, like especially with the between the winds and the strings, the flute and the violin will have exactly the same line in unison, but he'll slur the flutes differently, and it's totally intended. It's just so if there's something that's bugging you, I think you should seek out a couple more authoritative sources, but otherwise I would I don't know, I've got the Yellowing International edition here.
yeah, me too.
So it's hard to tell with these editions, like you don't always know what's especially international, but so it's worthwhile to check.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. I know that a number of, well, both Laura and Tessa are out of school completely. Yeah, you've done postgrads here, and we have a bunch of second-year postgrads listening who are going to be preparing for hopefully auditions within the not too distant future. There'll be auditions back on the books. And Steve, I'm sure you've listened to a lot of violin auditions in your role as concertmaster of the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra. So do you have, I don't know what I'm even going to ask you, best advice for these big concertos?
Oh, for the big concertos.
Yeah.
I mean, no special advice. I mean, sometimes it's good to not pick certain pieces, perhaps. I think Brahms' concerto is not a great piece for audition sometimes, at least first moment, because it's really hard, number one. And number two, you don't get the opportunity to get that far into it. I mean, there's that thing. I mean, to tell you the truth, the concertos of Mozart and a romantic or contemporary concerto, it's where most people kind of form their opinion of you, like whether it's morally, ethically right or not. It's the first few minutes where people can kind of experience, people can say, oh, okay, that's good, that's the kind of player you are. So you want to put your best foot forward for the first moments of both of those things, and I think not just to nail it, but to like make an impression musically that this is someone who has all these basic things but has something to offer, and someone we'd love to play a quartet with. I mean, that's what in our group, we play so much chamber music. It's like, okay, you might find a fantastic violinist who plays Sibelius perfectly, but then so you have the hopes, and then they can't sit down and play second violin in a quartet. So it can work both ways, but make a good impression. No specific.
That's good, though. I mean, it is your chance to sort of make your voice heard. So
I mean, I think, it's kind of if you have a short time to listen to someone, it's those basic things that we're all like attracted to, the quality of your sound. And some people might say, oh, that's not to my taste, that slide. I wouldn't worry about those kind of things. I would worry about, am I playing in tune? Am I playing with a point of view? Am I making a good sound? Because a good sound, those things come out in any hall, hopefully.
anyone else with a question?
The dog, there's a sleeping dog that has a question. That's your dog.
That's my dog sleeping. Hopefully she's still sleeping. She's probably thinking it's about time to be let out. So maybe we'll leave it there for the day. But thank you so much, and I hope everyone enjoyed the time. And Steve, thank you so much for spending a couple of hours with us here in the UK. I think it's great to hear you, and yeah, thanks so much for having me, and congrats to all of you that played, and good luck to all of you.